Technology to improve human connections. So I love this theme because even though we're all techies and we have learned so much about big data, IBM Watson, social media over the course of these 3 days, so often in the media and in our personal lives we hear people complain about technology. That it's empowering versus encumbering, that we can work 24/7 or from anywhere, that it separates us instead of connects us, like those stories about college kids sitting in a dorm room texting each other instead of actually talking. So just last month, 1 month and 1 day ago, I turned 50 years old. So that causes one to reflect. And so it caused me to reflect upon the technology innovations that I've witnessed over the last quarter century. So I thought I'd share a sample, actually quarter century, what did I say, half century? That would be half century, it's hard to believe, I still haven't wrapped my head around that. So first, I distinctly remember when I was 5 years old watching the first man land on the moon. And it was very exciting, but it was also a government-funded project during the Cold War. So now, today on our panel, we have the honor of having a woman who's not only been to space herself, but has pioneered private space travel and is also on the leading edge of making everyday technology more integrated, seamless, and user-friendly for those of us on Earth. So I'd first like you to meet Anusha Ansari, who she is the co-founder and CEO of Proteus Systems. As she launched her company, she also blasted off to the International Space Station and captured headlines around the world as being the first female private space traveler, as well as the first astronaut of Iranian descent, the first Muslim woman in space, and the fourth private explorer to visit space. Pretty amazing. And also, as a successful serial entrepreneur, she, along with her family, provided the title sponsorship for the Ansari X Prize, helping launch a new era of private space exploration. She also runs the annual What If competition for middle school students to promote free thinking and STEM education. So welcome, Nisha. Switching gears to my second story, when I was 16 years old, I was so excited because I got a banana phone for my birthday. I don't know if anybody remember those. Those were cool-shaped cordless phones that you can actually press instead of dial, right? So I thought that was dynamite. Okay, that's aging myself too. So, and now my kids, who are 13 and 10, they have this really cool device that's not only a phone, but it's a typewriter, a Rolodex, a camera, a game system in the form of an iPhone. So we have our second woman on the panel who I believe that tomorrow we're going to be able to say similar things about lighting solutions as we now can about phone and communication devices. And so, it's funny because Rebecca Bompedi works on lighting systems, and of course when I was growing up, what was our choices in lighting? Well, we had a 50, 75, 100-watt white light bulb, right? And now Rebecca, who's the Senior Vice President of Lighting at Philips Lighting America, she is responsible for leading business transformation to improve billions of lives per year through energy-efficient and health-focused lighting solutions. I find that fascinating. She built her career on furthering global technology innovation while breaking through traditional barriers in corporate America. So she is very fascinating. She's a jack of all trades and has leadership positions across diverse functional groups, from engineering to supply chain to sales and marketing. So welcome, Rebecca. And for my third and final story, before I hand it over to the panelists, is that I actually met my husband through a personal ad. So through one of those traditional newspapers that were delivered to your door back in the day. And my parents were so horrified, they were convinced I was going to get molested or worse. And now, of course, there are so many social dating sites for all walks of life, and it's completely socially accepted. So we also have on our panel Michelle Crosby, who we all know the statistics, not just about marriage, but about the high rate of divorce. So Michelle has invented a high-tech solution for making the divorce process more amicable for families. As she says, divorce for good. So So Michelle, so let's welcome Michelle. She's an accomplished mediator, attorney, and founder of Weavorce. Weavorce's proven methodology and technology work together seamlessly to provide a more civilized approach to transitioning from one family to two, while helping companies maintain their couples maintain their role as parents. So Weavorce has been featured by Entrepreneurial Magazine as one of 2014's top 100 brilliant companies, and Michelle herself has been honored as a legal rebel by the American Bar Association and one of the top 25 most innovative lawyers. So again, welcome Michelle, so thank you. All right, so I'm going to be asking each panelist 2 questions. One about how their companies are creating these innovative new technologies as helping families and communities, and then the second about their role as women leaders in technology. So I'll start with Anusha. The first question is, what can you tell us about the gap that exists in today's market between technology innovation and meaningful innovation? So in other words, what innovations are you bringing to market that help families and communities live healthy, be happy, and enjoy life to the fullest?
Sure. Thank you. It's great to be here and part of this panel. As technologists, we all have aspiration for any technological innovation. It's meant to make our lives easier, simpler, help us save time, and usually what I find out that to some degree it does, but at the same time the level of complexity of things have increased over time, and so many different aspects of our lives now depends on technology that the combination of all of it has created a different level of complexity, and is taking more time out of our busy schedules to just manage our technologies and apps and everything else that we have. So that, of course, is a big challenge, but at the same time, for me, it presented an opportunity. As someone who was entangled in this complexity, I felt that, I'm an engineer and I feel so frustrated. Imagine someone who doesn't have the technical background, and also many of us in my family end up being the IT person for the entire family. So I'm halfway across the world, I get a call in the middle of the night from my mom. It's like, my app doesn't work, what do I do? I'm like, I have no idea what she did. But I imagine this is something that many people face. So what we decided to do when we launched Prodia was try to put ourselves in the shoes of the person using the technology and understand how they want this technology to work for them. So from a consumer's perspective, a lot of us work for companies or have companies that build devices, gadgets, or build software and apps, and we get so focused on that one function that we forget the holistic view that we need to have. So at Prodia, what we decided to do is to build a platform that makes delivery of technology ubiquitous and seamless, something that would allow all these things we hear of Internet of Things. So that means the Internet of all these smart devices that each speak their own digital language and they don't work with each other. And what we wanted to do is to build a platform that will make it all work seamless, and then on top of that, allow meaning to be delivered through these devices. So it's not just the device, it's not just an app, but what this device or this service will do for me as an individual. So a camera, for example, a netcam is no longer just a camera. It's a device that allows me to see my daughter, for example, walk home from school and make me feel that she's safe and be happy, or allows me to keep an eye on my mom who insists to live on her own even though she has some medical problems now, or keep an eye on her health remotely. So it becomes about meaning that these devices and smart devices and technologies and apps brings to us, and making it simple and easy and seamless. And one last point, something perhaps that you guys have experienced too. I sometimes, as women, because this is a forum of women in technology, I feel that we do spend more time thinking about how something helps us versus what. We're not enamored with something that's new and shining. Whereas when I think men approach buying a technology or designing something, they're more about the gadget, what's new, what's, how to make it look cool. But for us, it's more about what does this do for me? What service does it provide to me? And I think that's why I love to see more women in technology, because I think we can bring that meaning to the design of the technology.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing those comments. And I love to focus on both useful and seamless as well as meaningful. I think that's inspired, so thank you. Okay, Rebecca, I'd love to hear from you.
Sure. Well, I thought I would start with some data. Last year, Philips published the Meaningful Innovation Index report. And what they did was they took a look at, they surveyed over 5,000 people around the world to take a look at innovation and what it means to them in terms of health and well-being. And what they learned was over 54% of those that were surveyed were not satisfied that existing technologies today satisfy the most important areas of concern. And when you look at those areas of concern, and I wrote these down so I wouldn't forget them, the top 5 areas that came out of the survey were being happy, feeling safe, looking after the health and well-being of your family, and 9 out of 10. This was consistent across all countries and all respondents. Sleeping well and being comfortable at home, which I thought was really quite interesting. And the technologies, the top 10 technologies that they thought would be most meaningful in terms of innovation are protecting the environment, saving money, providing stress relief, living independently as one ages, having good education, providing preventive health, better medical diagnostics and treatment, workplace efficiency, and saving time. And I guess that's not too surprising, but the important thing, it was consistent across the board. So when we think about innovation, particularly in the company that I work for, we're looking at the intersection of human needs and technology, and we call that meaningful innovation. And I work in the lighting business, so as I take a look at some of the lighting innovation that we're doing today, and we think about some of the problems in today's world, think about rapid urbanization. By 2050, over 70% of the population around the world will live in urban areas. And so things that are critically important are having resources at hand, minimizing energy consumption, and having safety and security. And so lighting today, outdoor lighting, for instance, with intelligence and some of the digital lighting that we have, is already addressing these needs. So think about some of the intelligent lighting that we're doing. We have products today that allow municipalities assess what is going on into the community, to provide lighting in the right place at the right time, to illuminate upon demand, to manage lighting based on the density of the population within an area. And this addresses the safety and security needs, as well as provides better illumination with reduced energy in these communities. The other thing that we're doing and we're seeing today is, because of this rapid urbanization, lighting today is also providing a place for expanding mobile communications. So no longer do we have to put up all these new towers and have all this infrastructure. We're able to have this technology that increases that ability as well. And then if you think about the professional environment, lighting today, both in professional and the residential arenas, now can be tailored to your needs. So in the professional environment today, you can have lighting that will make you more productive in the way that you can tailor it to your workspace. And to be able to provide facilities and property owners the ability to manage the safety and security by using lighting to know who's in the building and where for emergency purposes and so forth, as well as it's reducing energy, and it's being able to make your space your space. And the same goes in the residential area, and these products exist today. So when we think about being at home and having tailored lighting, if you're at work all day, you come home, you're stressed, you want to relax, you can tailor your lighting to create the ambience and the experience that you want. You can have lighting that can help you get better sleep. You can have lighting that helps you wake up in the morning, so just like the rising sun. And one of the areas that I think is really important is in the hospital communities. Today we are providing lighting that helps improve in recovery rates by providing that ambience and that condition in recovery rooms that makes it more relaxing and more comfortable. And then in children's hospitals, a fun, more relaxing environment to help facilitate diagnostics and treatment by not making the environment so scary. And all of these things are available today and are continuing to improve. And the last area that I really am excited about, if you think about people around the world who do not have access to electricity, sub-Saharan regions of Africa, India, China, what the lighting can do today is really improve the quality of life. So through solar-powered solutions today, families who have had to rely on candle and kerosene lighting, which is quite dangerous and expensive, can now have regular lighting in their home that is solar-powered, that can improve the quality of life, allow children to study at night, families to do things at night, in rural areas, provide lighting in areas that increases the safety and security, and also gives them things to do where you can now illuminate small soccer fields. And so I think this is a really exciting area that is continuing to improve. So if you think about those areas of meaningful innovation, lighting touches at least 8 of 10 of these. And so otherwise it's no longer the light bulb, it's really creating an environment and experience. And so Philips, we have it as our vision to improve the lives of 3 billion people a year by 2025. And the only way we can do that is by having meaningful innovation covering these areas.
Thank you, fascinating. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Absolutely, yes. Shed light on something that's so ubiquitous for us, but it's helpful. It's just so fascinating about how it can, like you said, improve the lives of billions. That's a fabulous perspective. Thank you. Michelle, I'll turn it over to you now.
Well, hang on. First things first. Here we go. Mark Andreessen wrote an article about the time we were applying for Y Combinator on software is eating the world. And so when we went in to meet with the Y Combinator principals, they had a huge graph on the wall, and the two biggest markets that were really behind in technology were law and medicine. So of course they were very interested to hear how we wanted to apply technology to amicable divorce. A lot of our philosophy is that divorce is not a legal problem, it just has legal implications. It tests as the second most stressful event an adult can go through. And so when we started looking at how we could leapfrog amicable divorce and create a nicer way for families to go through it and support structure, we wanted to be able to put things in the right bucket, we say. The emotional pieces, the financial concerns, and then the legal pieces. And to do that, we needed to be able to do a high-tech, high-touch approach. And so as we began working on how we could use technology, we actually still needed to make the mediators more efficient. So we took all of the predictable pieces of divorce. So I now know, this really doesn't want to stay, I'm going to hold it. So we now know, because we've built software that's working across the country, that on average you have to answer 181 questions to get divorced, to fill in your divorce pleadings. Those, if it was that simple, everyone would do it. It's really about the art of how those questions are asked, and that's where we connect with the mediators. So in our beta test, and lawyers are also very adverse to technology, so we had to test and make it incredibly user-friendly. Lawyers have a tendency, when we were testing and watching how they worked with it, they would literally, if it wasn't quite intuitive, they would push it away and look for someone to help them. So we had a very big task to develop software that was very user-friendly, both for the mediators and for the family. Emotion is stronger than logical thought. You can't do both at the same time. Neuroscience is helping support this conversation. So as we looked at it, we started to put all of the predictable pieces into the software, and we found that we were saving 60% of an attorney mediator's time with just case management. So we were able to give this time and cost savings back to the client. We were also able to, with this cost savings, add educational pieces. Divorce is not just about your documents. When there are children involved, it's about building a sustainable co-parenting relationship in two households. The problems don't go away magically with a parenting plan. In fact, the patterns continue. And so we wanted to be able to use the technology so that we had more time to educate and create sustainable co-parenting relationships. So now, because of technology, we're able to work in teams so that each family gets an attorney mediator, a counselor with a background in child development, and also a financial provider. Could be a CPA or a certified divorce financial analyst. We're able to do this at 1/3 of the cost of just hiring one lawyer. And that's what technology has done for us, is really catapulting that conversation for families across the country. There's a divorce filed every 8 seconds in this country. It's a huge conversation. And the existing industry, in our humble opinion, is quite predatory. And so we're trying to really change that conversation, like you said at the beginning, changing divorce for good, using technology to make us more efficient. In the day and age we all live in our iPhones, why not be able to access and integrate your documents and your divorce mediation agreements right into your calendar, working right with your financial planner? These are all things we're building for the future.
Thank you. Thanks, Michelle. Thank you. Well, we've heard about 3 very fascinating areas of technological innovation, and I'm sure, given the techies in the room, there's a lot of questions out there to take a deeper dive into them. So I definitely want to give you an opportunity to do that. But so think about your questions, because we're going to get to them in about 10 or 15 minutes. But before we do, I just want to give these women an opportunity to talk about the answer to one more question, which is that what opportunities and challenges have you all faced as women leaders in technology, and then what advice would you give to other women leaders who are striving to make an impact and have influence in this sector? So I will start again with you, Michelle, actually.
Well, I have an interesting twist. Life, if you want to make God laugh, you just tell him you have a plan. So we started to grow WeVorce on a national level last winter. So we were growing at 80% month over month. It was a wild ride. I started to notice I was getting a little fatigued, but I was just kept working, blaming it on stress. We had just closed our first seed round, and we were off and running. About 2 months after our seed round, I had the pleasant surprise of discovering that I had a little one on the way. So, I scoured the internet. There had to be an answer, right? You can ask Google anything. And I was like, okay. So I've talked to the press on being a female founder and always approached life as, ambition is gender neutral. But I was literally heading into a zone where no man had gone before. No longer was I a female founder, I was a pregnant founder. And so it was a really interesting time for me as I started to navigate. The reality of being a female founder also brings the reality of, oh yeah, we have children too. And so, I wrote an article for the Wall Street Journal as I navigated my own journey. I called it 2 startups at once. And it really became a little therapeutic for me as I tried to wrap my logical brain about the journey I was embarking on. And the 4 main points that I ended up coming up with was, people do say strange things, and as more and more women enter into this world, it can get awkward at times. And so one of the examples I shared was one of our investors who came in pretty early, was very supportive. When he found out that I was pregnant, he sat back and he said, Michelle, if I knew you were going to get pregnant, I wouldn't have invested in you. And I remember it hitting me kind of in the gut. But at that moment, I asked him a very poignant question of, what do you mean by that? And this is just one of these tools I hand to women that I'm talking to, is people say awkward things, don't hold it. Ask them what they mean by that. Bounce it back to them. Because in that moment of me just asking him back, what do you mean by that? His face got bright red. He had 3 daughters. He realized that what he had just said was probably not what he meant to say. And so we were able to have a great conversation going forward. So that's the first point. People say strange things, get used to it. Put a response question in your pocket so that you can easily move through it. The second item is write your own script. We're all doing that a little bit, each generation by each generation. And in writing your own script, it means you have to be able to walk through buckets. As I started to wrap my mind around what being a pregnant founder was going to look like for me, I realized that culturally we have a script around what we're supposed to do as women and as mothers, and that didn't really fit what I needed to do at this particular point of my life. The next one was family of origin. We all come wired with lots of triggers, what we think we should do. So I had to navigate those as well. And then the last bucket after navigating both of those was, what did I really need to do? What did I really want to do with my life? What was motherhood going to look like for me in addition to being a CEO? And so write your own script, and then the last bucket, and I'll just for time shorten it, was no company is built with just one person. You need a team. You need a team in your company. You need a team at home. I'm very lucky to have 2 great co-founders, one in business and one at home. And we literally, sometimes at home it feels like I'm running a board meeting. We have to make the agenda, we have to do the quarterly plan, we have to get ahead of things. Because he also has a very big career. And so it does take a team. We have a wonderful nanny. So whatever that makes, whatever your team looks like, it sure helps make the world go round and all the pieces of the day go together.
Thank you. Excellent. Okay, fascinating. I love that. Can't find everything on Google. That's our learning there, right? Okay, perfect. Okay. Now, Anusha, I'm going to turn it over to you with the same question.
Sure. I came to United States when I was about 16 years old, and I didn't speak English. So just starting a new life as a teenager in a strange country, strange language, strange culture, all new to me. It was the first time I left Iran, my home country. And so everything was new and, at times very challenging and frustrating. But I also learned through that whole experience, which has helped me throughout my career, being in a male-dominated career, was that, whenever you have a challenge in front of you is an opportunity for you to take risk, to be bold and to try something new. And that's what I did, and it has helped me through facing different challenges. It's also, I think, by nature, I'm a very curious person, and I heard this saying that curiosity killed the cat, but in my case, I think curiosity saved the cat, or saved me, because with my curiosity, I always wanted to learn new things, and as I learned new things, it helped me find new solutions to old challenges. When I face a problem or face a challenge, I try not to look at it from the point of view that I'm a woman facing this challenge. I don't try to put myself in those buckets. I try to look at it as an individual. When I do something, I do it because I love to do it, because it interests me, because I'm curious about it. It's not because I'm trying to prove myself to be a woman or first at something. It's just purely for self-satisfaction. And I think when you put your mind to it in that regards, it helps you not see a lot of the external forces that may try to stop you from doing something, and it helps you focus on your goal and move forward. I also find that, interacting with a lot of women, especially from my background and my cultural background and the part of the world that I'm from, I find that a lot of time as women, we carry this guilt with us. It's something that may be from our parents, again, from our society or environment, and we always, when we want to do something for ourselves, we have this guilt that maybe I should be thinking about my family, my parents, my children, my husband. So everyone else comes first, and then it's us. And so it limits us. Sometimes we have these limiting thoughts, and we do things that we limit ourselves. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe I shouldn't be thinking about a big career. Maybe I shouldn't be doing that. So a lot of times, we don't do things not because we can't, but because we don't allow ourselves. We don't dare do it. And I think if we learn to recognize that and stop ourselves and give ourselves a break and give ourselves a chance to, not recognize any limits for our abilities. Because as women, I think we have the gift of being very resilient. Maybe it's because genetically we are going to be mothers, and as mothers, I think people face great challenges. So I think we have this resilience that helps us advance in a lot of situations that may be overwhelming for others. So I think we have this gift. We should take advantage of it and not limit ourselves.
Thank you. Well, I always love don't should on yourself, right? So that's really critical. Don't should on yourself. Okay, last but not least, Rebecca.
Yeah, well, I guess I can keep this short because Michelle and Anush really touched on quite a lot that goes through my mind. I started my career 30 years ago, and when I was interviewing for my first job, I was asked the question, did I plan on getting married? And I look back on that now, and life was a lot different then. And in fact, in the first company that I worked as a process engineer, I was the only woman in the engineering group and the only woman in the manufacturing area, except for one other who was in the shipping area of the plant. And it was really quite an experience for me. I was so young and naive, but I just did my job. And then later I moved on to much larger companies and continued to progress. I think I never really thought about being a woman until somebody was talking about it at the time. Whether we were doing human resources reviews and looking at diversity metrics or something like that, I really didn't have, maybe it's the way that I grew up, maybe it's that first company experience for 6.5 years where I really developed myself. But I think the things that worked for me along the course of my career were definitely having the sense of curiosity, listening and learning, wanting to try new things. And I think sometimes being a woman was an advantage because people would look and go, okay. and wanting to try to develop new ways of working, to develop new technologies, to really push the envelope. And I think it's that sense of curiosity and that wanting to learn. The other thing that I'll just mention briefly, and I have 2 daughters, I tell them all the time, do what you love and love what you do, and the rest comes. Because this is not about a career of making money, this is not a career about being powerful and successful. Do what you love and love what you do. And for me, that's always worked for me. And I'll tell you, I've had many bumps in the road along my career for 30 years, but where those bumps occurred or where that wasn't in place. I wasn't enjoying what I was doing. It was a difficult environment. But when I get out there and I do what I love and I'm with people that I love to work with, it seems to be a smooth ride and very successful.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Rebecca. Yeah. Well, I think obviously a key theme that do what you love and everything follows, right? So have that passion, have that excitement, have that curiosity be at the forefront. And clearly you've all been able to be so successful in all the different challenges you've taken on. So now I would love to open it up to questions for all of you. We have the mic runners, so just raise your hand and let's see who has a question for any or all of the panelists.
We left them speechless.
I know, I see that, absolutely. So, okay, there we go, perfect, thank you.
Sure. My name is Naveed Rezvani. I'm with CA Technologies. Great panel. Thank you very much. We all learned a lot from it. I have a question about the last statement that you made about love what you do and do what you love. How do you really explore opportunities to find something that you love to do? If you're in a situation where you don't necessarily like what you do, how do you get exposed to some of those situations?
Mm-hmm. Shall I take
Sure,
that? Sure. Well, I've been fortunate, and I think, part of it is luck, or I sort of, because of what I'm doing, have gravitated to those areas. But I've had opportunities. I got a big promotion at one time in a major company that I worked with. And, I was thrilled with what I was doing at the time. And I turned it down. And I got told by somebody who came around to me later and said, you have to recognize that, that'll be career limiting if you don't take this job. Yeah. I took the job. I wasn't happy. And I ended up deciding to quit the company later. I got reeled back in, but I had decided to quit. Because technology and engineering have been my passion all my life, most of what I've had in the way of careers and roles have been very exciting, and I can make them that way. I can sort of get involved in the things that I think are going to work. And definitely working with the teams and the people around me, one of the things that I really, really enjoy is making my team and my organization successful. That's something that if we're successful as a group, we will be successful as a business. But I've been fortunate in the fact that most of my career, along the way of my career, most of my positions, I really have enjoyed. And where I haven't has been sort of when I failed and things didn't work out and you move on to the next one. But I will add that in all of my roles, I have had the ability to touch technology and innovation. I had an opportunity to move into another business a friend of mine was running, and it's a distribution company, and I thought, you know, I could get a big job there, you know, earn a lot of money, but it's not innovation, it's not technology, so I steer that way. So it's sort of intuitive in some respects, but I will tell you where I haven't enjoyed what I was doing, it didn't work for the company or me.
Anusha or Michelle, would you like to speak to that? If not, that's fine. But,
Sure.
okay.
The one thing I'll add is, you know, I traveled the very classical success route of going the 7-year partnership track in a big firm. Hated every day of it, but that was a predefined role of success, so I was marching it, and my very achiever-like personality. And on the eve of partnership, when you know, they said, "Congratulations, Michelle, we're putting you on the partnership for May," rather than coming home and having a celebratory moment, I had what I called my first quarter life crisis, because I realized I was misaligned. It was not what I actually wanted to do with my life. And so I bought a book, 101 Things to Do with a Law Degree. I very much went through a searching exploration. I had it highlighted and earmarked. That's what us lawyers like to do. When a very good friend of mine asked me a very poignant question and said, "Hang on, Michelle, before you give up all the education and experience, if you could practice law any way you wanted, how would you do that?" And so that's where the articulation of the vision of WeVor started. And one day at a time, I had no idea that I would be sitting on the stage, you know, a few years later, actually doing it. But it really came with those types of questions. And it started me on a journey of really having to figure out how was I going to live and work all in alignment. Because it's tough to create change, and you really have to believe in your why and your purpose of what you're doing, because it's not as easy as it looks. And there's a reason why 8 out of 10 startups fail. And you really have to believe in what you're doing. And so one of the key, and I'll hand a tool if it's helpful, one of the key changes I made as I was going through this journey was, rather than starting my day with my to-do list or my email, I started it with looking for inspiration. And it was the first thing on my calendar. And so when I would sit down at my computer, rather than going straight to email, I started to own my own journey just by doing that. And starting to just be curious about wherever inspiration, and you find it, you start to find nuggets of where the cookie crumbs are of the journey, where you will start to find alignment. And so in those kind of searches and looking for inspirations, I found a group called the International Alliance of Holistic Lawyers, which took me to a conference in Chicago, and I just started following where my inspiration was. It won't lie to you. If you start to watch a TED Talk, of course, is just a wonderful place. I try and find a new TED Talk every morning. These are people that have made the steps. And the other, last closing part is, every time I've made a jump, I've had many entrepreneurial seizures. And every time I've done that, I just trust the net will catch me. You lose your breath consistently when you take leaps like this. But what I have found is that failure and mistakes are part of it, and I have a magnet on my fridge that says make a new mistake every day, because that's really where you have that courage to really start coming to life. We do get to live in choice, you do get to write your own script, but having the audacity to do that comes with the shadow of, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Because you're making it up. You're not following the predefined script of a 7-year partnership. But it's been the best. Every jump I've taken has always ended up getting me closer to a life where I can't wait to get out of bed in the morning. So.
Well, thanks. We've heard of holistic medicine, but holistic lawyers, we learned something. I think I know I did. Thank you. Anusha, would you like to take that? Or
I think, Michelle.
Yeah. Well, a follow-up question to that is, I love that you brought that up, because even though it's a very uncomfortable position to be in, just that awareness of your dissatisfaction or even misery is the first step to positive change, right? So just sometimes just being in that space, just recognizing it, right? Being in touch with yourself, and then being able to explore. I think that's fascinating. And one thing that I know have helped many women that I've known, women and men that I've worked with and that I've coached, to make positive transitions and being able to understand other options is to have mentors or role models. And it can be a positive mentor, or sometimes there's an anti-mentor, right? So I was wondering if any of you want to speak to that. Who's made a pivotal impact difference in your life and what that looked like?
Well, I didn't have a lot of mentors, actually, and I think you're absolutely right. It helps a lot, and that's why I support organizations that provide mentorship for young girls, for example, because I think it's important. But in the place and where I was growing up, and I was the only one in my family interested in math and science. There was no one else, and the first one in the family to go to higher education. So it was a, sort of, I had to find my path and then find my way around. I did love reading and read a lot, and so I was fascinated with Albert Einstein and how he used his imagination to imagine something that I couldn't even conceive of. How can you sit in a room and imagine how the universe and the laws of gravity can be different? And to me, that was fascinating, and I always wanted to get to a point where my imagination can be so grand and so wild that I can imagine things that are unthinkable. So those are, some of the things that I use, but it was hard to find mentors, but I think it's very important.
Yeah, well, good for you. I love that, finding it in literature, right? Yeah. And lives of other great people came before us. We stand on the shoulders of giants, right? Absolutely. So thank you. And I know, Rebecca, you've done a lot of work with mentoring women and supporting women leaders, both in the organizations you work with and in the community. Yeah. So would you like to speak to that?
Certainly. So, mentorship in one of the companies I worked for was a big deal, and I've had lots of formal, not lots, but formal mentors and informal mentors. And I found, being open to feedback, whether it's from a mentor or anyone else, is really critically important. I think some of my best mentors were peer mentors, people who I admired the way that they did work, people who had domain depth. That's one of the things I tell women and others that I mentor. Especially younger generations who sort of want to get there really fast. You have to have some strength in domain. You have to have special skills. You have to be credible and bring something to the table. And I think I learned that maybe the hard way, because I had a passion in something that I wanted to take and really take a nosedive into. But what I've seen during the course of working in a major company is those who come to the table, sort of late in the career without a lot of depth in any particular areas, are those that really sort of struggle and end up in generalistic kind of roles. And so that's one of the things that I coach a lot, and that was really pressed upon me, not so much from a coaching aspect, but just from the positions that I have and sort of the demands of the job, was to really get deep in something. And that's helped me out a lot. But I think, as I said, some of the best mentors that I have been my peers, where I can not be shy about saying, hey, how did you do this? How did you do that? You did that so well, and create those relationships. And the last thing I'll add is, in the companies that I've worked for, I've had some incredible leaders that I've worked for too, that have been sort of mentors. So while mentoring I think is great, particularly if one has a need for kind of coaching or guidance in a particular area, but you can always learn from the leaders and the people around you.
Yeah, thank you. Any last comments, Michelle?
One quick addition is just surrounding yourself by people that can expand your perception. Human nature, we're all so limited by our own experiences. And so I tend to, again with inspiration, find someone that I aspire to be like, or something that I want to learn. And then I reach out and contact them. And sometimes it feels like, but there's always someone using that network effect. And when you sit with someone, your mind it expands the more you ask questions, the more you learn about their journey. I tend to have developed a cadence of each investor and advisory board meeting that we have tends to leave my mind a little bit blown. because they can ask really intense questions and they're way ahead of me. So then right after my advisory board meetings, I follow it with an entrepreneur meeting, and I've just learned this cadence because it helps get me back into the weeds of, oh, right, this is what it's like to build, and doing that so that you're getting that change of perception, you're expanding it, and then surrounding yourself with people that, like you said, peers that are in the trenches with you that can help you apply that wisdom. So that you're getting that sense of normal of, oh yeah, it's hard to build things, it's hard to create change.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Well, I love that because it is true that we do live in a universe of abundance. We so often can think about scarcity and what's not working, but absolutely that's not true. And a couple years ago when I went down the path of writing my book, I reached out to so many thought leaders and gurus that I had always admired, and it was amazing the generosity that came back from Carolyn Layton to Rosa Beth Moss Cantor to Marshall Goldsmith, offering to review and endorse the book. It's just amazing how generous people can be if you just reach out and you ask the question. And that's what, of course, this community is all about. So thank you to our panelists for everything that you shared so generously and abundantly.